there, this is Yanis from Arcweave with Season 2 of the basic tutorial series, including features never shown on YouTube before. In this episode, let's have a look at the ways Arcweave's play mode has evolved. So let's go to our project called In a Tavern, this one. And you will notice that I've been fairly generous with attaching components to my elements. So let's click play first of all. And here's one of the obvious changes. Play mode now shows the components attached to the current element. This can be particularly useful. The most obvious case is when there are lines of dialogue and we can easily see who the speaker is. In order to achieve a similar effect, people used to have to assign the speaker as a cover image instead, thus missing out on whatever other background they might have wanted. So this new feature brings the play mode a little closer to a visual novel style, where you can have a background image while the speakers appear separately without affecting it. Another occasion is when we want to show some inventory items in play. So there you go. Just as with characters, we can attach components for items, spells, magical weapons, crime evidence, or whatever our story needs. And we get to see them on the play mode right here. A little note, in case there is no cover image, the components take over, sharing the space of the potential cover. So let's, for example, if we remove the cover in the first few elements and replay, we see that the components spread across the whole space for the covers. And if it's only one, it actually becomes the cover image. So let's replace now our tavern background. This was all good fun. Now let's have a look at some new and important functionalities of the play mode's debugger. First of all, the debugger button has moved up here and has the form of a cute little bug. Once we open the tray of the debugger, we see the familiar list of our global variables. Well, here it is only one. But we also see two new columns titled Before and After. So what are those? The before column shows the value of our variables before the current element gets rendered. So that is before executing any Arc script included in the current element's content. The after column shows the value of our variables after the current element gets rendered and after the execution of any Arc script code that may exist in the element's content, the current element's content. In this element, which has no Arc script code, we see that the two columns show the same value for obvious reasons. As we proceed, though, if we ask Solon Blasphemius, we see there is a -4 adjustment. Here it is. If we go to the diagram, ask Solon Blasphemius, we have an assignment here of the morale variable, and there is indeed a -4 adjustment resulting to a value of 6 in the after column. Now notice the orange color for the values that have just been reassigned through code. And if we proceed, now before column shows 6 and after column also shows 6, since there are no more assignments in this element. Then there is an increase of 10 right here. And again, we can see that reflected in the after column. In other words, we can now monitor our variables in a very effective way, helping our debugging process. But this is not all. You may have noticed that the before column is actually editable. This means we can assign any value we want during our playthrough to test outcomes on the fly. We can see that the arc script is still applied to the after column, so we still have a difference of 10 points. Now notice the light blue color for the values that have been manually edited. Another thing you may have noticed here is this undo last choice button, and it's pretty obvious what it does. It just takes us one step back to the previous element. And we can do that all the way to the beginning of the story. Therefore, again, we can test our story back and forth without restarting all the time. The restart button, of course, is always at the bottom left of the screen. On a similar note, a feature that is now here to help our debugging process is the new ability to start the play mode from any element we want. So far, we know we can set the project starting element. We right-click any element and choose Set Play Mode Start. And then the element gets its little star here, its unique star, and that's where the play mode begins every time we press the play button. But what if we want to run some tests requiring us to start our playthrough from various elements without actually having to keep resetting our starting element? Well, this is where this new feature comes in. First of all, let's reset play mode to the first element here. And now, whenever we want to start from any other element, we can just right-click and choose Quick Start Play Mode from here. And what this does is it opens a new tab starting the flow from wherever we indicated. The last feature we'll look at in this episode is a little cryptic perhaps, but very intuitive and useful. So far, an output connection creates an option button with text fetched from its label or the target element's title. So when we play our example, we get an option button saying just a sec because there is a label on that connection saying the same thing. If I remove the label, what Arcweave normally does is it fetches the title of the next element to use as option text. But now we have added a little twist to that. When an element has only one output connection and the connection does not have a label, no option button appears. Instead, we get this little downward arrow waiting for some player input. And if we click anywhere in this middle part of the screen where the element renders, we simply go to the next element. Of course, let's restart. If we add a second target element, so if we do, let's say we add a second element and it has some other title. Who will pay? Now, if we go to play mode, we will revert to the usual behavior, getting option buttons for each choice. Who will pay and money anyone. So that was all for this episode concerning Arcweave's new play mode features. If you find these tutorials helpful, please consider subscribing to Arcweave's official YouTube channel. You can find us, the Arcweave team, hanging out on our Discord server. And of course, you can follow Arcweave on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. I'm Yanis from Arcweave. Thank you for watching, and let the games begin.